Hello and welcome to The Hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Greetings, everyone. Winter tourism in China is no longer a niche activity. It is quickly becoming a nationwide travel trend. According to the China Tourism Academy, the winter season from December 2025 to February 2026 is expected to generate around 360 million domestic trips, producing roughly 450 billion yuan or around 64 billion US dollars in revenue. China's vast winter resources are now being turned into a powerful driver of economic growth. Earlier, my colleague Wang Guan visited Harbin, one of the country's most popular winter destinations. And beyond the city's famous ice sculptures, she met people working behind the scenes whose efforts are bringing new energy and new ideas to winter travel.
90 million tourists, 140 billion yuan, one winter season. This is Harbin, China's ice city, now one of the country's hottest winter destinations. Visitors from around the world flock here for world-class ice sculptures and once-in-a-lifetime winter experiences. But behind the craze, there are some quieter stories. Stories of people making sure visitors don't just survive the cold, but actually enjoy it. Meet Liu Xiaolin, a student at Harbin Institute of Technology. He and his team have developed a down jacket that can heat up by 55 degrees Celsius in just 2 seconds.
84年的时候，哈尔滨的这个冰雪旅游特别的火热嘛，所以说我们说，能不能去做这样一个保暖的服装？
Harbin's winter tourism has boomed in recent years. We wanted to use our expertise to create heated clothing to help tourists who are not used to the cold enjoy the ice and snow.
Liu's team is made up mostly of students in their 20s, all from Harbin Institute of Technology. Each member brings expertise from their own field, engineering, material science, and together they've turned that knowledge into a jacket that actually works.
我们做了这样的一个低压快热的一个模块。
We developed a low-voltage rapid heating module that maximizes the heat efficiency even at low power. We also innovated on the material side, incorporating a high conductivity fabric with excellent electrical thermal conversion. By combining these two approaches, we've significantly sped up the heating process.
But for Liu and his team, the biggest challenge wasn't just the technology. It was entering an industry they knew nothing about.
都是这个理工科的学生，就是我们团队也没有很专业这种服装设计的力量。
At first, we hit wall after wall. We're engineering students. We had zero experience in garment design. We showed factories our hand-drawn designs and asked, "Can you make this into a jacket?" They said no. So we started learning from people in this industry. First, you make patterns, then you choose fabrics and trims, and finally you create the samples. Only after that can you go into mass production.
Their heated down jacket quickly became a hit, with sales exceeding 1 million yuan in just one winter season. But beyond commercial success, their story reflects something bigger. In recent years, Harbin has been using technologies to strengthen its winter industry. But promoting collaboration between universities and enterprises, more and more innovations are taking shape. At the Harbin Ice and Snow World, automated ice shaping machines now measures and cut each box with millimeter precision. Robotic systems are being tested to lift, transport, and stack massive ice blocks with speed and accuracy. And the list goes on and on.
科技最终还是要惠民，要去服务于我们大众的。
I believe the ultimate purpose of the technological development is to benefit people. It should solve real-life problems. We may not be able to change the code, but we can change how people experience it.
But it's not just technology keeping Harbin warm. Local residents have stepped up too. As tourism surged and public transportation struggled to keep up, groups of Harbin locals started organizing themselves, showing up at train stations and busy tourist spots in their own cars, offering free rides to visitors who needed help getting around.
我带着我上毕业大学的小孩，然后呢，当时堵车嘛。
In 2023, Harbin went viral and tourists flooded the city. I was driving my friend to the ice and snow world when we saw a mother and her child on the side of the road. They were tourists and the child had a fever, and they couldn't get a taxi. So I gave them a ride to the hospital. Later, I talked with some friends about whether we could help more people. That's how the volunteer group started.
Young's idea quickly spread. The volunteer team grew larger. Firefighters, teachers, doctors, retirees, people of all ages and backgrounds, all keeping their cities, handle the rush of visitors.
说实话，我们这帮司机每天下了班之后，马上进入工作状态，拉游客，有的连饭都吃不上。
Many volunteers do this after work, driving around, picking up tourists. Sometimes it gets so busy that we don't have time for dinner. But we know how cold Harbin gets. We know how terrible it feels to be stranded outside in that weather. So we help as many tourists as we can.
If visitors feel it, for many, these moments of kindness become the most memorable part of their trip. Through them, they discover another side of the ice city, one that offers not just breathtaking frozen landscapes, but heartfelt warmth and genuine care.
景区景点留人，他们留一次，但人留人不一样。
Beautiful scenery might bring temporary fame, but it's the people who make visitors want to come back. We are doing this because we want our city to get better and better, to welcome more visitors. We want them to leave with a new impression, to remember the warmth and hospitality here.
Harbin's story is not just one city. It reflects the broader rise of China's winter economy. In the year 2025, the sector has shown strong resilience, with total output expected to exceed 1 trillion yuan and participation reaching hundreds of millions of people across the country. So what is keeping this momentum going after the Beijing Winter Olympics? What forces are driving the industry forward? And how much room is there for future growth? To discuss all these questions, we're joined at this hour by Kari Tirkkonen in Comparative, Finland. He's the CEO of Suomutunturi Ski Resort and Uniman Group Unitours. Welcome, sir. Andy Mok in Shenzhen. He's a senior research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. And here in our Beijing studio, we have Paul Dong, the co-founder of EI Asia Limited and the sports industry observer for as long as I can remember. Now, Paul, great to have you back. 300 million people hitting ice and snow. That was a very ambitious goal set at Beijing Winter Olympics some 3-4 years ago. And then now we're having another Olympic cycle in Italy, the Winter Olympics. How would you reflect on the journey China has been through in the past 4 years when it comes to ice and snow, and particularly sport?
Well, actually, it's beyond my imagination. 4 years ago, when we did achieve that goal set by our, great leader back then, 300 million, that would sound unimaginable for not only for China, but for the entire world. Well, when you have that number, when you have such a large demographic movement around such a country from northeastern China to northwest China, Xinjiang, and everywhere, northern China, and even southern China, I think it's an admirable accomplishment or achievement. And other than that, people would think that, after the Olympics, who knows what would happen? Yeah. But all those, not only the figures, but the pictures that you see on screen, that it does tell you the exact what's really happening. And so when you want a word that comes to my mind to describe what has been happening over the last 3 or 4 years, I cannot think of anything other than sustainability. We really sustain the numbers. Several hundred million people travel, and we can discuss about what's the real reason behind this, other than the policies encouraging this development. I think it represents a very fundamental social development.
That is the winter economy that we want to bring about, going forward from the Olympic Games.
When you have a vision for people to do something, sometimes you have to pray for some external factors to help you. And that exactly happened to China. More than 40 years of very busy economic development. People have been busy. And finally, you have a time that a greater portion of the population started to have and enjoy more free time, more leisure time in this technologically developed country and an economy, and they need to kill their time. And they would try anything to let them feel excited. And then winter sports serve this purpose. And they also, in this internet age, they also figure out how to travel economically.
Before we go to Kari in Finland, Andy, let me ask you, you lived in China and worked in China for the longest time. How do you see the changes taking place? I mean, the ice and snow economy, the ice and snow sport, the grassroots enthusiasm towards those things.
Sure, Wang Guan. Well, I think clearly, as we heard, this is one of the results of unprecedented prosperity for an enormous number of people. So they do have leisure time, they have the interest for new experiences, coupled with the incredible infrastructure that's been built, not only the ski resorts, the other places where these winter activities can take place, but the transportation infrastructures where as well, civilian airports, high-speed rail, etc. But what I want to add here is I would say this is quote unquote winter sports, because I think what China's doing here is far more profound than just letting people go to places where they can enjoy snow-based activities. But in parallel with this, China's also developing an unprecedented number of indoor winter sports facilities, ski slopes, etc. And I think what this is doing is really not growing within the traditional winter sport industry, but completely rescaling it by engineering winter out of the equation. Because we know that traditionally, in order to enjoy winter sports, it relied on two things, geography and climate. You had to be in a place that was cold enough and had enough snow to ski, to do other snowmobiling, whatever, these other outdoor winter activities. But China, I think, really is just transforming this notion of what winter sports can mean.
I mean, exactly. If you look at the enthusiasm for not just winter sport, but sport period, it has been growing tremendously. Now, Kari in Finland, we envy where you are, the beautiful ski resort that your group own. I heard that it has nearly a dozen slopes. Tell us about how you run these ski resorts and how busy it is at this time of the year.
Well, thank you. We are quite busy. We have international tourists, and not only to the slope, but quite in numbers to the forest. And this is the diverse way of providing service for clients. So on November time, we are full packed with the international sportmen for alpine skiing, for giant slalom and slalom, and at the moment we are more or less full, like for the adventure seekers in the forest.
I mean, Nordic countries are well known, have great reputations for excelling at ice and snow sports and dominating the Winter Olympics in each and every time. Finland, your home country, Norway, battling it out at some sledding finals. How do you see this sports culture, this ice and snow culture coming into being, coming into where they are today? How are they shaped?
Well, we live in a cold place. We have 4 seasons, with summer is very, very warm, very nice. But then we have, of course, the winter, which is cold. We've been having here minus 30, 35 degrees, and today maybe minus 20. So this is just a part of daily life. And as citizens here, we do the things which are very common for us, and then the infra is building around, and it's following in the past decades already. So it's, in a way, it's nothing new for us. So very natural. And then the sports, well, this is a healthy way of living, and society is always supporting the healthy way of living. Young people, they start in the early age for the sports. They go for the ski schools, And then when they develop, some of them, they want to go further. And we provide possibilities. And we have ski clubs as well. And this is the way how it goes. I think it's a pretty European and Scandinavian way.
Very good, very good. Thanks for sharing. Now, Paul, in what aspects do you think China has done right when it comes to cultivating the passion, the grassroots passion of taking up a winter sport and loving it, coming from where we were 4 years ago to where it is now, especially when it comes to young people, even kids, taking up winter sports?
If you look at 1990s, China was early enough to be insightful and visionary to adopt a so-called strategy, if not for the state, but for sports development, which is to encourage as early as possible people in the South to try to practice, because that's based on an economic reason, because relatively speaking, southern provinces and coastal provinces are more economically developed, and they were also more open to Western development style and lifestyle. So it would be an idea easier for them to embrace. So actually, China started to lay the foundation for today's fast development from the 2020s or even a little bit earlier, that the overwhelming majority of the population are no longer satisfied with being an audience only. You know, in the past, when we were more developed in summer Olympic sports, the majority of the population would think this had nothing to do with me or with my life. They represent our country. They were elite professional athletes. What we could do is only to watch and cheer for them. But now, when it comes to winter sports, as well as many other southern sports, it's finally the time for more and more of the Chinese people, especially the younger generation, think, I don't have to follow those excellent athletes on TV. It's part of my life. I want to try it. That's really what's happening. There are so many young people who don't know the big names on the international stage, but they care to practice by themselves.
Exactly. China is as vast as it is diverse. So we do have in the northern areas frozen for over a quarter of the year. Now, Andy, you lived in the United States as well as China. The United States has a very different yet interesting in the organizing system for sports lovers. How would you compare America's system versus China when it comes to cultivating more of a ice and snow sporting culture?
Sure, Wang Guan. Well, just briefly, at a high level, the U.S. system really is about professional athletes making enormous amounts of money, especially in sports like baseball, football, and basketball. So many kids, as I'm sure you know, even at a very young age, have these dreams or perhaps fantasies of becoming a professional athlete. When it comes to winter sports, again, whether we're talking about skiing, snowboarding primarily, and maybe ice skating and hockey, I think it is more ad hoc. And it is also, again, very climate and geography based, that this is very naturally something that develops. And I think the Chinese approach is very, very different in that it's based on infrastructure, system design, and ultimately year-round consumption. Because the word I would use to describe where we are with winter sports in China today is normalization. What we're going to see, and in some ways we're already seeing, is just how this unlocks enormous scale. And what scale does is it lets you invest in R&D, in better facilities, better equipment, better training, not only for professional elite athletes, but even for in the US, we would call them the weekend warriors, right? The people that are more take it as a hobby. So I think that's very important. Where that will lead us to, too, is new empires of sports equipment related to winter sports and indoor developments as well that we'll see year-round participation. And this will be, I think, bring enormous commercial opportunities as well.
Right. Thanks so much for these comparative insights, which leads me to Kari in Finland. I mean, how has Europe's winter economy, especially in the Nordic countries where you are, taken shape over the years. I mean, what factors have been most sustainable and important in this regard, and any experience that you think are relevant for China?
We have a lot of sustainable development in here. Of course, the size could be different, which is natural. But what I would like to state before is that after Beijing Olympics, it's a great achievement that the boost, what happened before the Olympics, is now continuing. It's going so much further. It's becoming such a massive in scale and continent-wide. So here in Finland or in Nordic, we are pretty mature. Like now, Europe becoming more mature in this. In this mature way, I think we treat the cold and we treat the winter not as let's say, a trouble. So it's sort of our friend, the cold and the winter and the darkness and the snowstorm and even the stars and all these things. And what we are trying to do here more is like we make our products for the tourism, we make slightly doing some modifications around these nature phenomena instead of building up something new, something different, or some like a big party around it. And we feel that this kind of a bit modest way, which is very Scandinavian way, is very, very sustainable and could be something nice as well.
Making the best out of nature and smiling from the heart, that is so important. Paul, talking about that, there's room to improve when it comes to our winter sport and winter economy, right? We're not just talking about numbers on the surface, but what beneath those numbers and how we can really improve the quality of service, making people have greater ownership of what they do and taking greater satisfaction in what they did.
I think your question takes us to this very, very important aspect that even significant, I mean, for our Finnish friends, that what the booming market or development of ice and snow sports and peripheral tourism industry mean for international experts. They do have expertise, you know, because the business, the industry, or the sports have been around in Europe and North America for more than 100 years, but quite new and almost alien to Chinese just 10 or 20 years ago. So they still, even with such a, you know, booming phenomenal development now we witness in China, we are still in a very, very early stage, and we are kind of prepared for a very steep fluctuations next. What would happen to our market? I will have run into some difficulties. So I think it's very important for China to resort to long-term experience and expertise from other countries to help us stabilize this development. And yeah, I think, well, it will be overwhelmingly depending on our own adaptation and adjustment, but still we need to look out for expertise, even from neighboring Japan, from other countries, and some of the oldest, I mean, long-term skiing resorts near Beijing are actually invested and run by Malaysians. They are professional in this business, although they are from Southeast Asia. I mean, so I think, yeah, we still have a long way to go. We cannot be just content with where we are now.
But what would be the key word that you want to share when it comes to improving our winter sport and winter business quality? Keywords, maybe 2 keywords.
Yeah, I still believe that that expertise is the key word. Yeah, we cannot be over proud of ourselves and just disregard the more developed experience in other continents. I mean, China remains an emerging market in this business. The United States, North America, Europe remain the largest ice and snow sports markets in the world, followed by China and Japan. So we still have a long way to go, but China has its own way. And when it comes to figures, and we have our own accounting criteria. But China does have this very realistic and practical target of making sports-generated economy to contribute as much as 3 to 4% to the national GDP. We are almost there yet, but which is the level that the United States now enjoys. So China has that target based on other countries' experience. We are almost there yet, but we still have a big challenge to sustain that target.
Yeah. Andy, what would be your advice? What keywords to improve China's winter economy service?
Well, I think I might use the word I used earlier, Wang Guan, which is normalization, in that being accessible, convenient, reasonably priced. So one of the things to point out here is I think one of the differences with skiing, say, in the US versus parts of Europe, is that buying ski equipment traditionally has been quite expensive. You need some specialized training. It's not easy to get to. So it was seen by many people as a kind of an aspirational sport, right? If you were wealthy, if you were part of the leisure class, you could afford to go skiing. So, you think about Aspen in the United States, right? And I think this led then to this sport not only being a sport, but also a lifestyle. So, of course, many people would buy skiing-related brands of clothing, shoes, goggles, things like that, even though they might not necessarily be skiing. And I think this is an important way to get to what Paul just mentioned, where sports, maybe perhaps a little bit loosely defined, becomes 3-4% of the Chinese economy. And I think, again, the other word is I think being systematic here, that, I think the direction China is traveling in is that it is engineering winter out of the equation, meaning that people that want to engage in winter sports, of course, can go to Harbin, they can go to other parts of China, but they may also go to their local mall. Like I've seen in the UAE, the Mall of the Emirates, they have an indoor, very large ski slope.
Yes.
But this is seen more as a novelty, whereas I think China is approaching this very methodically, very systematically.
Thanks for shedding light on all these important issues. Paul, great to have you as always. Andy, thanks so much. And Kari, come back again. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Hub on CGTN. On behalf of our team, we want to wish everyone and your family a very happy Chinese New Year, Year of the Horse, full of prosperity, health, and happiness. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing.
Thank you.
Thank you.